Alrighty, what's up everybody? So here we go. This is the most controversial of the videos that I'll be putting up on Black Desert. There's going to be opinions in here that some people might not like about the game, that some people might disagree with. And to give you kind of a precursor, we're going to be talking a little bit about the pay to win. We're going to be talking a little bit about the progression of this game. That's what this main video is centered around, and you can't talk about progression in this game without talking about monetization. I know that scares a lot of people away, but I don't think it should scare you away from the game. To give a little bit of perspective, when this game has a very down to the individual type of pay to win, and it's kind of hard to describe. It's easier to show, which I will in this video, give you a little view on it, and you can kind of make up your mind if you feel that's good or bad, right? I'm not going to try to tell you what to think. I'm not going to tell you how you should spend your money. I think that if you are an adult with money, you should be responsible enough to make that choice for yourself. And just kind of, if you're someone who sees the video and things like that, just take it easy. Don't freak out in the comments of, you've attacked my game. Look, it's a product. It's not an attack on you. It's just my opinion on it to a degree. But also, there are some things that you just won't be able to deny that happen in the game. Let's kind of get into, I have a little script here, just like the previous video, of just what, just talk about, like progression, what I wanted to talk about. So, progression in this game has gone through a lot of changes since it's been out. I didn't play the game at launch. I didn't start playing this game till like 2017-ish, 2018-ish. I think I dabbled in it back in 2015, I remember, or whenever Ninja first came out. That was the first time I installed BDO. And I thought it was a cool class. I saw an ad for it. I'd never heard of the game before. I played it, picked it up, saw the progression, and put the game down immediately because it was trash. I'll just be real super blunt about it. Like, it was so brutal to gain any gear score, and it wasn't that fun. Unless you wanted to grind for hours and hours and hours. And I just didn't want to do that for too little bit of gear score, and you're nowhere near the end of the game. Like, it's kind of insane. Way it was. It's not as bad, I will say. BDO progression wise is in the best state that it's ever been in as the game. I think just about anyone who has played this game in the past can tell you that this game is in a good state in comparison to the past. I still think it has a ways to go if it really wants to start retaining a larger audience of players, because this game, whether we like to admit it or not, has attrition. It has an insane amount of attrition. Everyone starts the game really excited. Everyone is all high, hip, and yo, and we're gonna do it, and we're gonna get through it. And then they're sitting there like me, grinding infinite pot at, at this gear score, right? Like, that's, and I've been doing infinite pot grind. I've done with Blood Wolves. I'm on Shurikan Necropolis, and let's be honest, it's not the most compelling thing ever, right? Like the infinite pot pushing, but we'll get there. We'll get there. We'll talk about that kind of stuff in a bit. So the first bullet point that I really wanted to get to was what I like to call the RNG inside of the RNG. It's not just like one dice roll you often have to progress against in this game. It's multiple. And what do people mean by that? Well, let's pop it up here, and it helps to go through the little steps here in this. Let's say my next big gain, if we pop this up here real quick, there we go. If we pop this up, let's say, all right, let's pick an accessory, right? Yeah, I think everyone who knows the game knows where I'm going with this. Let's say my next big gain is to make this a pen, or make some of these equivalent to a tet, or whatever it is. Doesn't matter what accessory it is. Let's say they just want to make this a pen, or assume this was a try and we wanted to make it a tet. Let's even go easier than that, right? So let's say that's my next big game. I'll have a try accessory. I want to make it TET. Okay, so let's pop up the central market. Let's go to accessories. Let's just do earrings because earrings simple. And let's do Toon Grad. And as you can see, like that's a good example, right? Getting to a TET is actually an upgrade for me. I lose a little bit of DP, but as a ninja, I don't really care if I lose a little DP. If I got a better earring out of it. So, and a little bit more AP. But here we go. So, well, actually that one has a lot of accuracy. Okay, regardless if that's an upgrade or not is irrelevant. But let's just say I want to get to this, right? I want to get to a 10, and I'm at try right now. So you could either save up money, which if you are making close to $1 billion an hour, you're probably past this upgrade. Let's just be real honest. If you're a normal player. I'm assuming you're not the most hardcore of the hardcore players. I don't think that's a metric we should ever measure a progression for a game with people who are playing all day, grinding 8 hours a day. I don't think even 5 hours a day. That is more than half a work day for some people of grind. It's unrealistic to expect the normal player to do that. But let's say you want to go from try to TET, right? So first, what do you got to do? Now, either you can farm up a bunch of silver and maybe buy a bunch of bases and try to upgrade your way up. You could do that. There is RNG with how much silver an hour you make. It depends on the drops you get at the spots. It depends on your gear score. There's a lot of variables that go into how much silver you'll make at a grind spot. Then, on top of that, you'll have to start buying these things, and then you have to pray that they upgrade. That's the other big problem, right? So you have a chance to fail, and when accessories fail, they go poof. They're both gone. All your hard work is gone in like literally 2 seconds. So what a lot of people do is they mask these and they try to tap all of them or something, right? Like they try to do stuff like that. But the fact remains that you are praying that your time wasn't a waste in the game. And that's real. Like, that's just how it is. You can say that, oh, well, you're making gains in these other parts of the game. But if you are focused on this upgrade, if you need this upgrade to go, this is how you got to do it. It's one of the ways. The other way you could do it, you can go to a spot that drops these earrings, and you can get those, and you can hope to tap them to where you want to, or maybe get a try and then try to tap it to 10, maybe use your crons or whatever, which is another resource being used, right? To make sure that you don't make things go poof, which I believe if you're cronning, I believe there's a chance for it to also go down. And for accessories, not just for armor, crons will stop your gear from going down, but this just stops them from going, I believe, poof, or for the item from going completely poof. So, but that's the issue, right? Is that now you not only needed the RNG to get enough drops, you needed the RNG to get enough silver, but then you actually need the RNG for the upgrade itself. And I think this is something that BDO can fundamentally look at and improve, where I can tell since the game is recently in the game, there is a higher chance for these things to drop. I've gotten more of them more often. But it can feel like I'm fighting 2 different RNG dice rolls often, because I'm fighting it to get the stuff, and then I'm fighting it to actually upgrade the stuff. This doesn't feel good as a player. Like, and a lot of times when people say, then why do you play the game? We play the game despite of these things. Like, let's keep that in mind. Like, these things cause a lot of frustration for players. They can make hours of grinding borderline meaningless, especially if that is the upgrade that you need right now. That can become a really huge issue in the game. There's a lot of different methods that you can use, but you really have to start looking at third-party resources. You have to start kind of figuring other sneaky ways out, and at the end of the day, it's gambling with your time is what you're doing. Now, I'm not one of those who's going to say, oh my god, gambling, so wild, so crazy. It's, you can choose to or choose not to engage in this if you want to. And now this is a 31 billion, which is not super terrible to save up for. But some of these things can get quite expensive when you need them later on. Where are they? Right here. We got distos, right? Like this. Saving up for this. Like, can you do it? Yes, you can. You can make a couple of billion an hour maybe, but I feel like you'd already be like here at least if you're doing that. But that's still a lot of hours, man. Like you divide, like let's say you make 2 billion an hour, like divide that by 10, you know, like that's still a lot of time. Like, and if someone says that's not a lot of time, then you must have a lot of free time. Like, I'm just gonna be real honest, right? Like, that's a lot of time. I think the upgrade process can be improved by removing the RNG out of the RNG. Another example is, here's a real thing too. Upgrading your own gear and seeing it go forward feels so much better than buying it. Like, for a long time, I was so stubborn, I wanted to tap my Beggs gloves to pen, and they were not going. I eventually used the Jatina thing to get a guaranteed pen, but I really wanted to tap them because I did want that experience of seeing the upgrade go forward by my work and just having that dopamine hit of enhancing, right? But there is so much more to lose from enhancing than there is to gain. And the resources you have to put together, and it's kind of going to the next point of backwards progression, the resources you have to put together to stop your items from going down, it can make the game feel extremely tedious at times. And when you start getting into upgrading suckers like this, you know, like your Fallen God, when you start getting into these higher tier items to upgrade, it is painful. It is absolutely painful, you know. And I think that part of the game can, I think the game doesn't need to have backwards progression. If you want to make low chances of RNG of going forward, like 3, 4, 5% chances, and that's it, fine. You know, that's totally fine. And it costs me a lot of materials to like do a tap. That's fine. You want to make me lose 50 durability and make sure I have the memory frags or something? Sure. But just don't make my character get weaker from an attempt, right? Like, that feels bad. I don't want to have to go grab another item to tap. I don't want to sit there and wait for cron stones, which we will get into, right? Because I know that's what people are going to say. Well, use your cron stones. Well, yeah. I'd rather use resources that are more farmable in the game, that are more about my time in the game. I would prefer to spend my silver on not outfits I want to melt into crons, and which we'll talk about later. But yeah, I think backwards progression in this game can be addressed. I feel also for accessories in particular, these guys. So when you try to enhance these guys, here's the one you want to enhance, here's the other guy, all you enhance, boom, they both explode if you fail. Why? Why do both have to explode? You already failed. You have to go regrind already. Why does the player need an extra punch to the jaw before having to go back? They don't need to both explode. The one that the base one you could be trying to explode, you know, you could even rework the system to where, let's just do this, let me pop it up real quick. You could even rework it so that in order to go from try to tet, maybe you gotta smash 2 tries together, but at least you won't lose the try you have, right? Something. I understand that they probably, like, from a design standpoint, they want to have like this kind of gamble in the game. Okay, but I think there's so many better ways to go about it than where we're at right now. You know, I don't think this is good. Like, I think this could be improved, and it feels archaic. It feels like from back when BDO launched, it's a system that just didn't quite get as overhauled as it should. Now, I know what the naysayers are going to say. They're going to say it's gotten better, but it's not there yet. Like, let's just be real about it. We don't play the game because of this system right here. This is not what we do. We play this game despite this system. You know, that's one thing. All right. The next one. So you have these things called failed stacks. So let's show those, right? So you want to go in, you want to enhance. And you see these suckers here, additional enhancement chance. These are your fail stacks. These Volks enhancement, you could use these. You can stack about 10. I was doing some taps on something. I forgot what it was, but I'm at 15 right now. I have 42 stored here for some reason. Okay, so here we go. When you enhance an item and you fail, you you gain a fail stack, unless you use crons for some reason. That's another thing. If you want to have crons, why not just let the fail stack go? Why not just make it easier every time? You're already making me spend hours and hours. Just shit, man. Just let me make my life a little easier. I'm giving you money. I'm paying for my buffs. Come on, you know, like it is one of those things. But your enhancement chance goes up, and there's ways to build fail stacks. You can get like a Grunnel helmet, build fail stacks to X amount. Then you open up another thing and you enhance to build another item that's harder, and you just build another set of fail stacks until you build like 200, 300 fail stacks. This is so tedious, bro. Like, this process is super tedious, to the point where I should just be able to trade an item to get X amount of fail stacks. And I know you kind of can with the Blackstones, but like, I don't believe it lets you go all the way up to like a 300 fail stack. If I'm trying to enhance like Fallen Gods and stuff and higher tier items, I have to go through a pretty tedious process to make fail stacks. It's not fun. It's not a fun process. It's not interesting. It's not engaging for the player in any shape or form. It would be nice to be able to farm up fail stacks, and things like that. You know, I think that could be a thing. I think that really would help me want to fail stack and maybe enhance for profit and stuff, and help more people get into that part of the game, because the barrier for enhancing for profit, for example, and enhancing your gear to progress is often the fail stacks and like building them. When you hear about that, no one wants to do that. It's painful, to say the least. So, and this kind of leads into another point with the problem I have with the progression in this game. It feels like you're fighting the game to move forward in it. It doesn't feel like the game is there to help you, if that makes sense. You know, I know that's a really tough thing to say, or maybe a tough thing to hear, but it does genuinely feel like that as a player. I feel like I'm fighting the game often. I'm fighting RNG. I'm fighting being gear checked. I'm fighting this. I'm fighting that. I'm fighting being ganked in PvP. I'm trying to learn my class and get better. I'm fighting the frames per second when there's a large scale thing. It feels like there's these elements when you're trying to move forward in this game that could be alleviated, but there's so much battle going on. And here's the thing. This system might have made more sense like way back, right? When there weren't that many items. When even boss gear wasn't a thing really in the game yet. But today, we have so many things to work towards in this game. So many. And the progression path does not need to be this harsh. Upgrading your Fallen Gods take a lot of energy. They take a lot of time. They take a lot of preparation per tap. And I'm talking from the perspective of an average player. A person who's like, I play the game at a hardcore, like a dedicated level, but I'm not a streamer at it. Like, I'm making this channel, I'm good as I stream the game. I'm gonna be streaming it more here on YouTube. I need to fix some things on there, but it's not my like full-time job to play this game, right? I also like to play other games, and I think from that perspective of a player, it can feel brutal. If this is like the only thing you're grinding and you're grinding it non-stop every day, you might not have as big of an issue because you can go and gather the resources. You can sit there and go buy more outfits instead of Kaffir stones to upgrade my gear, right? Like right now I gotta put Kaffirs in my gear, right? That's where I'm kind of at in the game. So I can't really sit there and waste that money on an outfit. Maybe I can, but still, it doesn't change the fact of how I feel as a player in that position. I feel like I'm battling the game. The next problem that I have with progression, now let's step away from like the RNG-ness of the game. I think it's pretty clear like what I mean about it, like how there's so many layers to RNG, how you go backwards, how you're just constantly battling it in the game. You have your fingers crossed all the time. How tedious it is to build fail stacks, right? When it's so core to upgrading things in this game. Let's talk about the unfairness of progression and why I don't like a progression. It's practically all RNG, right? This game is all RNG for the most part. Everything's RNG. Your fairy is RNG of what perks you get on it, and then you have to either pay money to get the right ones, and you might not even. You can re-roll a skill. For example, if you want the auto pot to being used on you, you could use it. You can get cheer 4. Cool. Maybe I want to get cheer 5, which is the name of the skill that uses autopod. You can re-roll it, but if it's not cheer 5, or it's a different skill entirely, it replaces it. Like, don't even let you choose, from what I understand. You know, that's crazy. You got RNG there. I'm grinding for an infinite health pot right now. It's a terrible silver spots, because that's just where the stuff drops. Cool. I'm not going to spend 20 billion, 10 billion, 9 billion, whatever it is right now. It just came out to the other patch that you can buy one. I'm going to spend that on my Caphras and stuff and my other parts of my gear, you know, to keep moving forward in gear score. So, you know, there's tedious things with these that are like in the game. They're like all these little things that you have to grind and RNG your way through. I think my actual gear can be one less element of that. You know, I don't think that needs to be necessary. But going into the unfairness portion of it, let's say you're playing with a group of friends. You're all loving the game. You're all grinding together. You're having a good time. There's 5 of you. 3 of you get lucky with taps. Your gear goes forward. You get stronger and you move on to other gear score areas in the game. Tougher areas in the game, right? That'll make you the right money you need to keep progressing forward. But then the 2 of you are left behind. And then 1 of you taps a little bit, gets ahead. The other 3 have also now moved on exponentially faster, because when you start getting really good gear in this game, you start making money exponentially higher. You can actually start looking at making billions, multiple billions, or sometimes $1 billion an hour. You can't really do that until you get to that state in the game where you have an elixir rotation, stuff like that, and blah, 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 blah. Right? You have to get all these things and be at the right spots that are highly contested, and you have to be able to defend yourself, and blah, 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 blah. Now you've taken a friend group and you've stratified them throughout the game, and they can't play together properly. Now some people say, why don't they just group up? Because people only have a limited amount of time. Let's say that after work, you come home, you spend some time with your family, you do all that stuff, and you log on at 10 o'clock, and maybe you got 2 hours to grind. Are you going to waste your time grinding with your homie who's in a completely different spot, but it doesn't make you the right amount of money and doesn't drop the right things for you to make gains? No, you're not. And if you do, you and your homie probably will quit the game eventually, because he's just stuck. Is your homie going to keep playing the game with you when he's tapping and tapping and tapping and failing and failing and failing and is not getting it, and his gear's getting blown up and it's getting degraded and he's going through all this stuff? Is he going to keep playing with you? Probably not. And then you're going to have no friends left in the game. A lot of people lose friend groups, not because they hate each other, they all still talk to each other in Discord and stuff, but because one set of friends moves past the other. When you have new friends come into the game, they have such a mountain to climb. And some will say seasonal helps you skip a lot. All seasonal does, guys, all seasonal does is it lets you skip practically this aspect of the game, the Medea aspect of the game. Really, like in real aspect. Like if we're really sitting back, like it lets you kind of skip these spots, right? These lower AP, anything below 250 AP, right? It lets you kind of jump almost right into here, right? That's what seasonal does. But that wall is still there. It didn't go anywhere, right? It's not missing, right? It's still there. And we can sit there and pretend like everything got so much easier. No. There's a wall, and we just sped the train up into the wall. That's all we did in the game. We didn't actually improve the progression as a whole. All the annoying progression systems that people have bashed this game for over the years are still there. They're still there. You know? Like, they didn't go anywhere. They're there. You just run into them a little later. That's all it is. You just don't have to sit and grind for your witch's earrings anymore for an upgrade, right? Like, things like that. You don't have to sit there and work your way up to a arc because you get Tuvala gear, which is the equivalent to the boss gear. They've basically removed those grinds, right, by doing season. So that's a bit of unfairness, and that progression is new players can't come in and catch up with their friends at an adequate amount of time. Players who have started together, that RNG can kind of separate people out into the haves and have-nots in really no fault of their own. Like, I'll give you an example. I've spent a lot of time learning my class, getting pretty decent at ninja. Am I the best ninja on the server? Absolutely not. Am I a decent player? Do I know my combos? Am I fairly successful in PvP? Yes. But I've seen people who don't put the same effort in and have just gotten lucky. There's no other way to describe it. They just got lucky and they advanced ahead of me in the game. Like, come on, right? Like, that's what I'm saying. It's unfair. The progression is unfair. At this point in the game, I kind of brought this up earlier, going into my next bullet, is there is plenty in this game to grind, guys. Like, it's mainly a PA if they ever see this. I know I just started channels, so it's probably not. But here's the thing. There's a lot in this game to do now. This isn't 2015. This isn't 2017. This game was a lot smaller back then. Now we have all these stories to get through. We have all these quests to do, all these journals, these fallen gods, this, that, and that. We have all of these long-term items to go get. That even if there was no RNG and there was just a long progression path, which there kind of is, that's still a lot of game time you have in your game. And if you let people have a better time getting into the end game parts, if you get them easier into PvP, you're going to see a more lively end game over time. Players can actually participate in that cool stuff that the streamers and all of them talk about, all the spots they talk about, all the fights they talk about and things. They can actually go do those things. They can actually experience what it's like to have a where's Ash Forest at? They can have what it's like to have a Dubroka necklace drop when it's relevant, right? That's the big thing. Yes, eventually everyone is going to slowly keep moving along, but by the time I start getting this to drop, it's not going to matter because something else is going to be there instead, right? It feels like you're in a rat race and you can never catch up to the players who just don't stop ever playing. And look, I'm not trying to blame those players. All right, like, that's fine. If that's how you want to play the game, that's okay. But what I'm saying is a lot of us want to kind of jump into that same stratosphere with those players. And even if some of them are better, it's just fun to like play with them. It's fun to PvP with them, learn from them. And at least gear score is no longer as much of a factor into what groups you can get in and what guilds you can join, right? Like, how is a player going to really sit there and learn PvP properly when every set of good PvPers who can teach you the real ways to play PvP have gear score requirements that you're just not going to... Really, you don't know when you're going to get there. That's the real reality, right? Because it's RNG. You can either get there really fast or you can get there really slow. Or you're playing a class that scales better at X amount of AP and blah blah around amount of AP. This can also help PA as well, getting people through the progression faster, balancing your game, right? And now look, it's an MMO. It's never going to be perfectly balanced. There's always going to be a class that's just kind of OP. Look, we're MMO gamers. We should have accepted this by now. But what do you balance this game around? Do you balance it where 99% of players are? Or do you balance it where the top 1% is? Because that's a completely different game. A 730 gear score and higher is a completely different video game. It has elixirs, it's got all this other shit, all this other buffs and all that stuff going, blah, 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 blah. It's got all this stuff going to power up the character. It's got the evasion, it's got the accuracy, they got flex builds, they got this build. It's a different ball game. Do you balance your game around that? Or do you balance it around the soft cap? Where pretty much everyone is, right? Or do you balance it a little bit higher than the soft cap, or even a less percent? You see, because the problem with that is no matter which one of those you choose, a demographic of players is going to feel the pain. And are we balancing for Solaire, right? Are we like the ranked, like thing that actually gives you ranks, right? Are we balancing for that, right? What is the balance point? And I really feel bad for PA in this situation a little bit because it's tough, because every bracket of gear in the game is so different. Different classes are meta in different brackets. They're like different video games. They're like different patches, almost. You know, like to put it in perspective. So they really need to organize that. They really need to get that together. And I think that is... They have so much in the game. There's so many things to strive for. There's so many things to micromanage. I don't think the gear and progression needs to be in one of them anymore. I think the game's big enough to stand on its own. And I hope that one day it can, because I think a lot of players will start playing this game the day they don't feel that pain, and the day they can tap and feel less scared to do so. Now here we go. It's at the end. If you've made it this far, I appreciate it. I know it's 30 minutes in. It's a long video. This one's a longie. Alright? But you know what? There's one last point we gotta talk about, and we can't not talk about it. It's called the monetization of the progression. Now, you use these bad boys called cronstones. Alright? Now what these bad boys do is they stop this gear from going down when you upgrade it. So let's take a look here, right? I have a Pride Fallen God. Alright, let's put this sucker off. Alright, let's go to enhancement. Here we go. Boom, you see these guys? This is where they are. This is just going for Pride to Duo. It gets more expensive than this to do a tap. Alright? So, here we go. So you get these cronstones. You get them from like events. You get them from your little Black Spirit adventure game and stuff like that. You get them from various sources. PA gives them out. But they don't. Once you start getting to these higher tier stuff, they really don't give you out enough to do a certain amount of taps. Like, unless you're grinding a lot, there's a lot you can't do. Right? Like, you have to wait for PA to kind of give it to you if you're a normal player. Right? If you're like Choice or you're Biohack or something, I'm sure this is not an issue for you at all as a player. But it's an issue for a lot of us. A lot of us are normies, if you want to call it that. Right? It's a problem for us. But here, you have cronstones, okay? They stop your gear from going down when you try to upgrade it. Alright? So, you get it free by PA, but once you start going to these higher tier things, they're not going to give you enough. Okay. So how else do you get cronstones? Well, the other way you do it is you swipe your credit card. You get these outfits, premium ones preferably, you buy them, and then you melt them down into cronstones. Now, you can buy these from the shop. So, if you just search outfit, right? That's not how you spell outfit. That's terrible. That's outfit, yeah. Okay. So you got Valkyrie outfits and stuff, and you can melt these things. You can get them and melt them into crons, and if you go up your pearls, like you take these things, you can melt them. You can see the cron, how much it'll tell you how many cronstones you get from melting stuff, right? This is pay to win, no matter how you look at it. Like, and that's gonna hurt some Black Desert fanboys' ears. But the real reality is pay to win, because if I can swipe to get more taps in a week that are protected, I've increased my chances to move on to the next piece significantly. Significantly. If I'm selling outfits on the market for silver, I am making literal progression gain towards my next upgrade through swiping. It's like, imagine if you have an XP bar, right? Like, let's visualize it this way. There's a camera. You have an XP bar. It takes 100 hours to, not 100 hours, let's say it takes like 50 or 30 hours to get halfway to your next big upgrade. But if I swipe my credit card, and you can sell, I believe it's 3 outfits a week, I believe. If I do that every week, that is a free 1.x billion. Not free, but it's a 1.x billion added to my already existing grind. I am chopping down that XP bar by swiping my credit card. You'd be pissed if you could do that in most games, but that's essentially what you're doing. If you think of how much silver you need to get to your next upgrade, that's like the XP bar right there. And you're just shrinking it by swiping your credit card. This is pay to win. There's another way to describe it. A player will progress faster who swipes. Now, the big argument that people love to bring up, which I think is dumb, by the way, is they love to say it's too expensive. That's why it doesn't matter. That's stupid. Like, it's still there. There are, believe it or not, guys, there are people who have enough wealth to do that stuff. And you don't have to do it all the time, right? People, what they do is they calculate it out by saying, what if they swipe for every piece of the upgrade? That's not what you do. You supplement yourself already playing with the swiping. So maybe you swipe every other week. Maybe you swipe twice a month. Maybe you swipe 3 times a month. Maybe you do all of those things. But you still are doing other parts of the game. I'm not saying the player is literally sitting there and doing nothing and swiping. That's not what I'm saying. And that's not the issue, right? The issue is the fact that you could do this at all to supplement your progression. And when you start getting deeper into the game, you start feeling more compelled to do so. Right? Because why would you not? Because eventually the cron stones dry up quick, man. When you start getting towards the end of the game, they do. And this is something I think PA really needs to look at. It really does. Like, I think they need to assess how they go about this. I completely understand making money, but I think they do. Now, I do want to put a disclaimer here at the end. This doesn't ruin the game for me. Just want to say that out loud. I know this is a much more negative video in comparison, but it doesn't ruin the game for me. It doesn't break the game. It doesn't because this game is played so solo in many ways. It's not the end of the world. And look, just because a game has aggressive monetization doesn't mean that you can't enjoy it as a player. That's just what it is. Look, we're living in 2023. That's just how things are, man. But at the same time, if you're having fun with the game, keep playing the game, man. Just keep playing it. Don't worry about that. If that aspect of the game doesn't bother you, totally fine. I bring it up in this videos because if you're talking about progression, you can't ignore it. For example, if someone asks me, is the game pay to win? I will say yes. That's just the real reality of it is. And you have to let that player decide if that bothers them. If you ever have to say something like yes, but when it comes to monetization and pay to win, you already lost the battle there. Or sorta kinda. There's no such thing as sorta kinda. It is or it isn't. And it is in this game. And you know what? That's A-okay. Right? I guess. If you enjoy the game, right? If this bothers you, yeah, it's probably gonna bother you about this game. Just gonna say it is. It is what it is. But if you enjoy it, you enjoy it. You want to play it. So I just want to say, don't take this as an anti-BDO video or something like that. I really just wanted to say that I think the progression in this game can get better. I think it can become more fun. I think it doesn't need to be as brutal anymore because the game's progression path is longer than it was way back then when you only had a handful of accessories or a handful of items to upgrade. Today we have a lot of items to upgrade. Today we have a lot of actually horizontal progression in the game. We have a lot of different accessories and items for different builds for a lot of different classes. And also, here's the other aspect of the game. It's not just your main that you want to gear up. Like people say, use the tag system, which lets you share gear between 2 characters. Oh, my succession warrior, who is my other class is one of the other classes I like to play, he cannot gear like my main, which is my ninja. They just cannot. They literally cannot. They need different accessories. They need different everything, for the most part. Maybe except core gear items and stuff, of course, with DP, but because they're both DR. I play Awakening Ninja, so I use DR. But yeah, that there is still that grind of horizontal progression. And if you want to extend progression out, just give us more horizontal progression. Give us more fun and cool items with cool set bonuses for us to work towards, and let us have reasonable gear progression paths towards those things so that we can all enjoy it. And also, when you want to come out with a new challenging expansion, everyone in the player base can enjoy it. When you come out with a new grind spot, we can all enjoy it. But you can't do that when the whole game is stratified across the board. So, I hope the I hope the progression of this game gets better. I think it will, by the way. Just to also add that at the end, I think PA cares a lot about this game. I think they have shown it. Their GMs are pretty awesome. They're pretty active. They've constantly improved the game over the years. They could have just stuck to their guns and said, we're just gonna let the whales wail and just have our game be that, because this game was pretty bare bones in a few years ago. It was fairly bare bones, you know. I think PA cares. I think they're listening to the player base. I think they're trying to make things happen, and they're adding. One thing I'm loving is that they're adding a lot of content to the game. They're adding new content. I love that they've taken this direction a little bit into more group content. I think this game's in desperate need of that. Separate video, so that is kind of what it is. I appreciate you guys staying this far. I guess it's a 40 minutes. It's a longer one than the other two, but next two videos, PvE first. Then we're gonna talk about PvP, and then the last thing was, jeez, what was it? God, it was. Oh, I think that was it. Yeah. No, life skilling. Life skilling was the last one, and talking about how the handling of those systems are. But thanks for sticking around. This one's been long enough. But yeah, I'll have this one should be coming up after my new player experience one. Just standing there, just shooting some thoughts. Not a lot of gameplay in the background right now because I just wanted to really be focused on what I'm talking about, and it just helps me focus on it. But yeah, I'll be popping up some live streams real soon on YouTube here, putting out more BDO content. For those who watch this, if there's any stuff you want to see, like you want to see me do or strive towards or try to grind towards, right now I'm doing infinite pot. You saw my gear score in the video, so you can imagine what I'm capable of doing at this moment. But yeah, just like, subscribe, whatever. Leave a comment, do what you want. Not your dad. And yeah, take it easy.